Hello, welcome back to the MCG. MCG, of course, standing for Martin's a cool guy for letting us record a podcast at his house. It's a little bit different. We're at Martin's house, which is
inaugural Martin's house podcast.
Take the show on the road.
A very delightful, if not unexpected, turn of events. And this week has been very rich with delightful and unexpected turns of events, which we'll get to. We'll get to all in good time. Are you keeping well? Actually, I usually ask Frank, but we're at Martin's house, so as the guest, I should ask the host.
Yeah.
How are you, Martin? Are you well?
I am well. I'm a little bit tired because this has been a week where my wife Ali's been away in Sydney, so I've been doing the lion's share of the childcare and all the facilitation of that. So that's been fun.
What a man!
And one story I will tell is just like Naomi was having, because it's hard for Naomi. It's really tricky. And she was just like having a bath the other day. It's a good story about how you have to be a bit of a psychologist as a dad. And she was having a bath and she's like, oh, can we have the old bath mat back? We had just had to change it because the old one got a bit moldy. I was like, no, sorry, we got it, but I want the old bath mat back. And we ended up having a meltdown about, but I really wanted that one and I miss mummy.
Yeah, that's what really is underneath it all.
This is what the metaphor is.
It could be whatever triggers it. It's a small path to take to get back to I miss mummy.
Yeah,
it could be. I suppose it could be anything.
You just go, oh yeah, this small thing that you're acting, and here we are.
And there we ended.
All
roads lead to mum.
Yes, that's it. And now I hold you when we talk about yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so interesting week, but I'm here. I'm still awake.
Nice.
So there we go.
Nice. Oh, and who else is here? Frank.
I am here.
I was going to say, as always, but you're not always at Martin's house. That would be strange.
Not that he knows about it.
I hope not.
But
the
you
grass
are
is very comfy
at the moment. And are you well?
I'm doing very well, mate. It has been it's been a bumper week for reasons we'll get into.
It will all unfold. But before we unfold too much, there are usually bare bones that we like to cover on this podcast called the Hammerbine Project, in which we park down episodes of the Australian Children's Television program Bluey. And do I throw to Martin for bare bones? Martin, do you have any bare bones? He said knowingly.
No.
Martin's shaking his head.
No, I don't.
What?
Martin,
Why do you not?
How could this be? Martin doesn't have bare bones.
I know someone who does.
Oh.
This episode of the Hammerbine Project is called Behind the Bowler's Arm.
Giggity.
Take it away, Frank.
All right, so we're changing things up. We're at Marty's
Changing
house.
Things up. There's lots of things that are changing.
There's lots of things.
There's lots of things different about this.
So we thought. So my apologies to the listeners. You will have to be subjected to my highfalutin nonsense, as the phrase goes. Let's see how this goes. So this episode is about adversity, where one little redhead fella takes on the hard knocks of life and becomes a legend. It's about when two tribes go to war, spelt W-A-U-G-H.
I see what you did.
For it's when life gets tough that the tough get tubby. Despite the trials that could leave one feeling dizzy, surrounded by a swarm of pigeons, he refuses to become some smudge on the path to greatness. He steels himself for the big show, digging deep like some sort of mighty bison as he prepares to face off against the Wild Thing, a big unit with the long levers, paradoxically called Tiny.
Oh.
This enforcer, with his thick, dark-haired moustache of fear, is supported by his own cabal of bandits. Punter, Binger, Gilly, Doss, and the scariest of them all, Big Merv. And while our hero was inwardly intimidated, he recalls the words of his wise father, whose pearls of wisdom could be heard echoing over the rolling green hills. Bold Shane?
Oh.
It sparks a revolution within him that suddenly made the complex very, very simple. As simple as A, B, and C.
What? I get that one.
For as was written in the original charter by the great historian Sir Donald, and I quote, "Sometimes you just have to step up and play a pull shot." In the inevitable crescendo of victory, there can be no doubt, a truer word as yet unspoken. Rusty is one very good pup.
Here.
Scene.
And scene. Well done. Well done.
I think you made up some words in there, Frank.
For those wondering, some of the words that had Brendan
Yeah, we're
giggling and
not being
felt a
very-
bit odd. There was. Do you want to guess how many references there were in there to Australian cricketers? As a round number.
Long ago, I guessed 9 for one of these questions, but there was a lot more than that.
So some of
22.
I'll give you that. It was 19.
Hey.
And the 20th one was the reference to the big, scary moustache, which could be about anywhere
Most
from
of
most of the
most
Australian
of
cricketers from the
The
80s.
Australian fast bowler.
Yeah. So any words to listeners, and we should apologise right off the bat because
For a couple of reasons.
Off the bat. Yeah,
Hey!
good one. Hey.
Apologise for that.
we are, of course, well, actually,
Yeah. This is all a very plum way of saying.
Oh, nice one, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. This episode of Bluey is called Cricket.
Woo! Yes, it is. Oh, man.
So the things that sounded odd in there, they are all nicknames of Australian cricketers. And if somebody wants to DM me, I can go through and tell you what each one is. I won't bore our listeners with that. But we had, of course, everything from Sir Donald Bradman, the greatest, to Shane Warne and lots of others in between.
Man, we
I spent far too long at work composing that PS.
so unfair to our international listeners who might not know what the heck we're talking about. Also, because this episode, I don't know if it's available overseas.
Not if you've been a good dog.
Not if you've been a good dog.
I believe the term is Tasman exclusive.
Tasman exclusive. But Frank, go on. Tell our listeners why we just simply had to do this episode this week.
Well, this is a bit of a double. Well, this week, yes. I'll also point back to the timing of when this episode originally came out. I believe it was actually supposed to be the start of the new drop, which we have still yet to see as of this recording.
Yeah.
But a certain game took place between Australia and India where Australia won what they call the World Test Championship. So over 2 years, all the Test match playing nations in the world, they have a points table. It's very convoluted because that's cricket for you.
Yep.
And basically Australia and India played off in the final to determine who was the Test champion for that period. Australia won. And then, what do you know, the next day or two, right before the Ashes started, coincidentally, this episode dropped.
Oh, man.
And so it's like, ABC, you know what you're doing.
A, B, and C.
A, B, and C. Alan Border, very good. But we're doing this episode now in light of another cricket match that recently finished a couple of days ago, funnily enough, also featuring Australia and India. We're talking about the One Day International World Cup. Now, for those who are confused, how can there be 2 World Cups so close together? Cricket has about 3 different formats that can each have their own sort of season and points tables and all that sort of stuff. Coincidentally, again, Australia v India. Australia were never even supposed to make the final. They lost the first 2 games of this tournament. Absolutely shocking. They had players injured. One of their players got injured falling off the back of a golf cart. If that gives you any idea. Another player...
That's not part of how you play cricket, is it? Because
it's really not. There's lots of
my
nuances
understanding,
about
no.
cricket. Lots of weird things about cricket.
But not
golf
riding,
is not one of them.
Okay, riding on the golf cart isn't the third sequence in the game after.
Yeah. You had another player
Rounders
who
do
rocked
that.
up to one match with like scars on his face, and everyone's like, "What happened?" He was swimming laps in the pool and just forgot to put his hand out and went straight into the side of a pool.
Yep.
So it all felt like the wheels were coming off. The whole tournament took place in India, which is notoriously conditions very different here to Australia. A lot more spin. India were the form team. India didn't lose a single game, except for the one that mattered right at the end. Australia should not have won.
Bonkers.
And we kind of did. And I kind of stayed up till 2:30 in the morning just to make sure this ridiculous thing was actually going to happen. So, yeah, apologies to any Indian listeners we have. I know they love cricket. Australians love cricket, but India breathes cricket. It is.
Boy.
People say, "Oh, it's sports like a religion." No, it legit is over there. They murals to great players, all that sort of stuff. So there are people genuinely hurting over this loss. Whereas in Australia, we'd go, "It's a shame we didn't get up."
Yeah.
So
I don't know, Frank. I think you've been mourning it for a few days. Well, not for this one because we never had it in the back, but for some other ones.
Oh, look, if we
I
lost,
have seen you pretty dirty.
it's fair. It's fair. I remember living at the old share house, 2005.
Yeah.
First time in my lifetime to that point Australia had ever lost the Ashes.
Yeah.
And I stayed up till all hours because it was over in England, so the time zone difference was crazy. And I was just in disbelief that we lost.
Yeah.
It was like Australia don't lose the Ashes.
Yeah,
because
because we are of a certain age, aren't we? And it's probably bears mentioning like the one of the reasons why this episode is so great for the references in it alone and all of the references in Frankie's Bare Bones. Just those people, like you couldn't escape it when we were kids, and like that was the golden era from the late 80s through I mean, even in the late 80s, it was sort of like it was unlikely that Australia would win if they toured England, wasn't it? And it was only in the early 90s and that 90s period where we were just
dominant.
We were just invincible.
Yep.
And so it was just so when we were kids watching a primary school where you'd go and you'd talk about it with your friends, you'd play at recess and lunch. I mean, I wouldn't, I'd watch. But it was the idea of Australia losing was just like it was something that we needed to learn.
It took a long time.
Yeah. It was just the luck of the draw of when we grew up, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I think we should say the other reason would probably be also because of Bluey Fest.
Yeah, that's right.
And this episode came number 1 in Bluey Fest. So Australians might know what this is. There was a big countdown of the 100 best voted Bluey episodes.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to Ali. I was like, it'll be interesting to see what comes up at the top there, because if it's something like Baby Race, that shows that maybe it's the mums voting more than the kids putting in a vote. And then Cricket came on top, and she's like, well, it looks like the dad.
Dad's on board as well.
Fair point. She got me there.
I mean, I think it's also recency bias in that this is the most recent episode we got. So
it's also the best.
Although they're just
isn't it? Isn't it just?
Or there could have been lots of mums voting, and they're just mums. There are a lot more. There are a lot more mums like Ali than she realizes.
Right? And to clarify, when we say Ali loves cricket, I don't mean my Ali, because she is not in that camp whatsoever. No. Your Ali is the cricket fan, however.
Yeah, she is. She grew up with her grandfather. They used to watch it at her grandparents' place because her grandfather was English.
Yeah, right.
So he had split opinions, I guess. Various things.
And
but anyway,
I think it's just before we get into the episode proper, to try and set the scene a little bit, which we've sort of done as to why we're doing it. It's this episode, people just go, oh, it's a sport, right? Now, it's really hard to define. It's while we have our own football, Australian rules football, so you would think that sort of rules the roost. In summertime, there is no other sport. It's so this game is so ingrained in our culture.
No money.
Tennis is on for like 2 weeks a year, and then that's it. Like it's hard to define really. And to any of our English listeners or listeners in India or other nations that do play cricket, they'll just be nodding along, going, "Yep, we get all of that." Yep. Our American listeners are probably just going, well, I don't even know what a cricket is. Like the closest and simplest comparison, I heard Mary and Kate on their show do an actually really good breakdown of how does a cricket game operate? What are those things sticking out of the ground? How do you score? How do you win? And it was brilliant. I'm just there nodding along going, yep, well done. Closest and simplest equation I can sort of compare it to is like baseball, which we have sort of called out on this show. But there are, at its core, baseball is about scoring more runs than the opposition.
Yep.
That's essentially like cricket. Now, there's obviously different ways of doing that. Baseball, I think one comparison I thought of the other day, baseball, there's 3 ways you can get out. Mm-hmm. You can sort of be tagged, you can get caught, or you get struck out. Mm-hmm. Cricket, there's 10, right? So that in itself is a good microcosm as to how sort of different the games are. So,
and I think we're going to be talking more and more about, because this episode just epitomizes cricket in so many different ways. Like
how to describe
it's really Joe Brum's love letter to cricket.
Yeah, absolutely,
isn't it?
100%.
So, Can we get into it? Well, do I have to do the second half of the thing?
Yes. What's it really about?
What's it really about, Frank?
Wait, I do that. Wait, what?
You can if you want.
Oh, yeah, sorry. What's it really about? Okay.
Yeah, what's it really about,
Yeah,
Frank?
see, now it's harder than it looks.
Yeah, see?
Let us tell you about the time that they tried to get Rusty out.
For it, did you?
I did not. I did
Yeah.
not.
Hey, it's his first time.
Be gentle. So no, basically all the families are together at some kid's birthday party. I don't remember. And they're playing a game of cricket out in the local field. And then Bluey's a little bit bored by this. Go, let's go play another game. I tell you what, we'll get Rusty out, and then we can move on with the day. And then we find out through a wonderful narration that Rusty has a real history with cricket, and the story behind that is just, and again, it's that thing where you go, I know where this episode's going. 15 seconds before the end, you're like, right in the ticker. Wonderful.
Yeah. I just love Bluey just kind of like leading the way. Oh, you'll never get Rusty out.
Yeah.
But Bluey just is like,
she's so, yeah.
Bluey's
She
just
knows.
the omniscient, like almost like the omniscient narrator in this.
Yes,
just
that's
kind of
true.
like, even though
She
the
knows
bandit
what's
is
actually
the
gonna
narrator.
happen.
Yeah.
What we didn't know.
Yeah.
Because Bluey probably did.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, and I
See?
do love, we've touched on those first few lines. Number one, it's Bandit telling a story from long ago, which kind of fits in with that theory we've been running with of like,
Yeah.
these are all
Wishy-washy.
memories.
Yeah.
And also, I love the idea that he doesn't remember. Number one, because that's just kind of like classic.
It's an adult
It's a
thing.
classic dad thing.
Yeah.
And also, it gives this really nice value to the fact that they're always together. This crew is just like always together.
Yeah.
so
So
simple.
neighborly.
It's
Yeah.
and it just blurs together, and you get that through like even the different games that are being played as part of this. You see characters you've seen before, and you're like, oh, they're hanging out. So it's so sweet.
Yeah.
But yes, even just the establishing shot of the field itself, you just kind of like, oh, you're instantly there.
Can I shout to that field in
Yeah.
particular? The Justin over at the Bluey's Brisbane podcast on their episode when they talked about cricket, he said straight away, and I know their show is all around the locations within
100%,
Brisbane,
yeah.
and he goes, "Oh,
scouted.
they had that starting sort of bird's eye view." He goes, "Oh, that's Watonga Park. I've played there."
Ah.
Like he knew. He goes, "Yep, I see the toilet blocks there." Like he was able to identify from that establishing shot exactly where that is. He goes,
Don't even have to research
He's
it.
played club cricket there, like, loves the game, and he goes, "Yep, well done."
Yeah, that's
Nice
it.
work, mate.
Oh, that's so good. And I love, like, I wonder if the that oval is actually better kept than the one that's presented here, because it's got the Kanga cricket yellow plastic stumps.
Yeah.
So the stumps are the things that people are trying to hit with the ball. That's what the batter is standing in front of. So in Australia, there's this very classic thing of these plastic yellow stumps.
primary
that you have,
school version
that's,
of the-
that's the mass-produced version that everybody has, along with the bat, which I can just imagine's got that fuzzy plastic, like it's been scraped at the end so many times. The plastic's sort of going, and also the worn out bits on the pitch itself, because it's kind of like a rubberized piece in the middle or whatever it must be, and the worn out bits of the lines, and just like the worn nature of it is just spot on, 100%.
Yeah.
That once again gives it that tactility that we're used to.
I heard the I think it's the official Behind Bluey podcast on the ABC, and they talked to this episode, and they specifically shouted that they had one of the sound people on there, and goes, I spent weeks of my life trying to get the perfect bat sound. So one, the plastic bat,
did it.
and then later on when Rusty's using a proper bat against a proper cricket ball, and it's literally that sound. It's him getting a bat and a ball, whacking it, listening to back to the recording, just
like,
trying to get that
doesn't fit.
Yeah, right. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And there's so many good little sound effects there. There's some other ones I want to bring up for later, but it's some of the other ones I just didn't notice because it is just so convincing. It's just perfect. It's like on point.
I'm
You're
immersed.
just like, oh yeah, exactly, because you know it's that plastic bat and nothing grates because it makes the perfect sound.
Actually, plastic isn't a material; it's a property of a material.
Ooh.
From the Greek word plastikos, meaning flexible. What you're thinking of is a polymer.
You can't finish the quote. I've been waiting to pick you up on Mike for that for ages. From your industrial design days, you could probably tell us what kind of polymer those yellow.
It's
bats
Probably,
were.
but he won't because that's boring.
It's probably polyethylene. Polypropyl,
Very good point, Frank.
Oh, there's another good shot straight down the
But we
ground.
do have Bluey and Pico first.
Mid-on.
Hilarious.
Now, this presents an interesting sort of time conundrum.
Oh, because when do they learn how to throw?
In Stickbird.
Okay.
If you assume that these are all memories sort of loosely sequential. So this puts this game before the events of Stickbird, which I think Stickbird leads into Relax anyway, like those are the sort of beach holiday episodes. So people were just like, hang on, Bluey can throw. Now, I would counter that by saying, yeah, you can throw. Throwing's not
bowl?
bowling. This isn't baseball. And one of the key differences as far as getting the ball to the other end, straight arm. You're not allowed to bend your arm. And so you go
It's
like
actually a rule. It's
Yeah.
not even just a...
It's a law in the game.
Yeah, it's a law. It's not even just a tactic. It's a law.
No.
Yeah.
If you bend your elbow, they will say, no, you have to do it again.
Basically. Yeah. So throwing and bowling, two different things.
They're very different things. But I love how, like, it's such a pie ball. It just goes in the air.
It rolls.
and rolls. And then the way that it's such a good pair. It just does the spin around. Because I think Bluey does a spin around as well. And, like, completely knocks her own stumps over and the ball hits them. And just the way Bandit reacts, it's just like, ooh yeah,
good
okay,
try.
good shot. You're out. Who's next? Oh, it's so good. And then it's... And then
I was going to say, I love all the kids in the outer.
Yeah.
I say
Yeah.
the outer.
Yeah, they're
so
doing all the
all the
things.
fielders who are just sort of standing there, hands by their side. I think if you look closer, Mackenzie's just sort of looking up at the sky, like not really paying attention to what's going on.
Chloe's flossing at one point.
Yeah, you see Bingo doing the handstand. I'll be honest, I love cricket, but fielding can be boring. When there's not a lot going on, there's a lot of play and misses, or the batsman's just sort of like, blocking it in front of them, the ball's not going very far. If you're one of the poor people right in the outer, like far away from the action, you're just like, it can be pretty boring, let alone if you're 8 years old.
Unless
Like-
you're the kind of quality player I am, where it's like where you're being like way deep is
your
really
preferred
handy.
option?
Just please don't come to me. Please don't hit it near me. Just let me see this out.
We'll get to that because I think I know you're referring to Nashie's Bucks thing again. I've got a story
I'm
to
actually
tell there.
referring to any time I've
Any
ever
sport.
played cricket.
But then you have to bring everybody in close because
Hilarious.
Hilarious.
Which brings me to the art of sledging.
Oh boy.
Ah,
Because
true,
that's what that
yeah.
is. Now, sledging for our overseas listeners, it's basically
An art worth your learning.
It is an art. And if you were to look up the best cricket sledges of all time, you'd find stuff that we cannot repeat on this
There's
show.
a rabbit
quite
hole.
frankly,
Definitely not.
Right? But I would like to point out a couple of my favorites that
Okay,
are
all right,
family
yeah.
friendly. And typically what happens with sledging,
It's
as Bandit does, is it's byplay between the bowler and the batter. And it's psychological warfare at its
Yeah.
simplest, right? You're trying to put the other
through
person off
words
by saying
It's
something
saying
smart.
something, yeah.
So one of the more famous people of this is the legendary Merv Hughes. You think of the stereotypical 1980s Australian bloke with his guts hanging over his belt. He's got the big stash, and he's just a big unit, right? He looks terrifying as a man, but he's absolutely lovely. So Merv got called a fat bus conductor by one of the batsmen, basically trying to put him off his game.
Yeah.
Merv comes in, bowls in, gets him out, and as he's running past to celebrate with his teammates, he goes, "Tickets, please," which is one of my favorites.
That one gets brought up
That gets
quite a
around.
lot.
Yeah.
Merv, the other one, bowled several deliveries, and the batsman just kept swinging and missing, couldn't quite hit it. And Merv turns to him and goes, "Mate, if you turn the bat over, there's instructions on the other side." And then probably the last one I'll say just quickly, this is the great Viv Richards, West Indian player, one of the finest batsmen to play. He's playing against an English fellow, played and missed a few times, and the English guys thought, I'll wind him up here. He's described the cricket ball saying, "Mate, it's red, it's about 6 inches wide, and it's round. How about you try hitting it?" And so what do you reckon happened the very next ball? Viv Richards has gone, bang, absolutely smacked it out of the stadium. He's gone, "Well, you clearly know what it looks like, so go fetch it."
Amazing.
Very nice. Yeah, this is one of the things I wrote down, and it comes into the episode as well, is the psychological element of it.
Sure.
A little bit later when we're talking about like the fear aspect,
Yeah.
and, like, you know, somebody being imposing on the other end of the pitch.
Yeah. So the psychological aspect, which is why of the different forms of the game that Frank was talking about earlier, it's still test cricket for me because these are the games that are played over 5 days.
Yep.
And if you got to form a partnership, because you've got two people batting at the same time either end, and then you'll when your score runs, you'll swap ends at the end of every over, and
that's 6 balls.
6 balls. It used to be 8. When did it change?
Yeah.
A long time ago, but that was a long time ago, before we were alive. But the thing is, it is so much of that the game is psychology, because you find a rhythm with someone, and that's why it's such a slow moving game, Test cricket, that you can really descend into the particulars and just cherish the nuance of the game and everything. Like the pitch, like Frank was talking about being in India, just the humidity changes the pitch, changes the way the ball swings through the air.
Yep.
Just everything affects everything when you move so slowly. you can obsess over each tiny nuance of the environment, and everything changes everything. You gotta form a partnership with the fella at the other end, and you gotta have staying power, because you're playing all day in the heat, and it's like, what opportunities do I take? And so it's like you got to psych each other out.
Lots of levels,
it just really, the more you watch it, the more you want to watch it.
Yeah, Test cricket, it's a team sport. We should point out it's 11 aside, unlike some other sort of other sports like tennis, for example. But it's the only team sport that I know of where you can go 5 days and not get a result in that time. There are conditions. Exactly. We won't go into the details of it, but you can ultimately draw the game depending on how circumstances go. So, look, you're right. Test cricket is for me. I think if you were to introduce someone totally new to the game, I think you go with your T20s, because
why not?
It's shorter, it's faster, it's a bit
fun.
more exciting,
Yeah.
and then you can get a handle on all the myriad of rules that exist, because the rules are the fun part, guys.
Organised fun.
I remember when we were in Sydney, we took some Polish friends to cricket for the very first time.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like, one of the things that came back is like, why are they celebrating? They've only got 1 point and the other guys have got like 50.
Wickets versus runs.
Wickets versus runs. So, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what have we got? We've got hilarious. And then we've got, I love it when it's, he hits it and get 6 and out, which is a thing that's like a backyard cricket thing, which is another brilliant element that comes into this episode.
All the backyard rules.
The backyard rules, the way that really is part
Tippy
of Australian
go.
culture.
Can't say crease.
One hit, one bounce.
One hand, one bounce.
That's the ultimate rule.
Yeah. All those sorts of things that are just meant to make it having the tennis ball and not a cricket ball. All those things that make it a little bit easier or a little bit more manageable. And the way that as well, it just makes me think, as soon as the ball goes over the fence or on a roof, the amount of time that you spend getting that ball back is also part of the experience.
That's worth a wicket. Is that one of the 10 ways you can get out?
6 and out.
6 and out. So there's 11 ways of getting out.
climbing on your mate's shoulders or something to get up in the gutter of the...
I remember one Australia Day party at Mr. Ferguson's place, and we had the ladder positioned because we hit so many of them over the fence. We're just like, all right, whose turn is it to get up over the ladder, to get over the fence, to get it back?
Do you take the risk and like jump over the school fence and go and get it from the next door neighbours, or do you go and get the teacher to say, "Oh, can I do it?" Or is it better to ask permission or beg forgiveness? That's these are the things you got to worry about.
And when it's and I also like the fact that Stripe just knocks it over the fence.
Yeah,
because it is like, hit me with a newspaper. It's a nice play off against the squash episode.
Yeah.
So it's a nice response to that.
Yep.
We get that going on. And then we have Rusty coming in. He's such a good boy. He's showing his sister how to catch.
Right. That's the first thing you see of Rusty in an episode that's all about Rusty. He's there with his sister,
Showing
like
how
playing
you
with
get
his sister
hands
already.
up, hands
if
down,
he's,
right.
he's really like the cricket nut. He could very well be the guy who's just walk in with the bowler and, be ready to catch at any moment. He's like, no, this is the time to teach my little, is it sister?
Dusty.
Yes.
Yeah,
sister, I
little
think.
sister, the game that he loves. Like, he's such a good
He's
boy.
such a good
Such
boy.
a good boy.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what Tiggy was. Did you guys? Do you know what Tiggy is?
Tag,
It's a-
chasing,
It's
basically.
I thought it was maybe with some stuck in the mud type elements, whereas when you get caught, you kind of get stuck in position.
Sure.
I
It's a
think
bit like
that's-
toilet tag, or
It's a bit of an Eastern States thing in
Yeah,
terms of what
yeah,
we would call it tag or it.
Yeah.
They call
Chasey.
it, Chasey.
We
They
call
call
it
it. They call it
Yeah,
Tiggy.
Chasey
Yeah.
when I
Okay,
was a
there you
kid.
go. So, tag would be the
The
American at
American,
least,
yeah.
or I'm not sure about more
Oh.
varied names internationally.
Freeze
but
tag.
freeze tag, maybe.
Is that something that I just made up? I don't know.
Probably. That's okay. I think people would generally get the idea. But then we have the classic line of just like, it's just about hitting a ball, and no, it's more than
No,
that.
it's more
It's
than
about
that.
more than that,
More
kid.
than that.
Ah.
And we get it all. don't we?
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
The first end of a couplet.
There it is.
There we are.
Gary has absolutely no idea what has happened to it. He still doesn't know.
You'll never
He
get
asked Kenny
Rusty
Powell
out.
on the way out.
Bluey, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Bluey
You'll
has
never
just got
get
the whole
Rusty.
thing.
Knows what's going on,
She's
and then
just got that
later,
pouty face.
just like I told you, we would
Yeah.
never, and she's just eating
The
a
sausage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
She's just
really
like,
nonchalantly
so
eating, just going,
unbothered.
why did you guys not know this?
I've had time to get a sausage.
Yeah.
And that first delivery that Bandit bowls to him, just before he's about to, and this is a real cricket nerd thing, but just as he's about to let the ball
fly.
go, you see Rusty take a step down the wicket, sort of like almost charging him.
His footwork is impeccable.
And it's like from a bowler's perspective, that's the most intimidating thing you can see. In that moment, just before you're about to let the ball go, the batsman starts walking at you as if to say, come on,
Whatever you've got, I've got an answer.
exactly.
For it.
And you're just like, oh my God, he's going
And
to
it
hit
comes straight for the camera
Yeah,
too.
bang,
It's almost
straight over his head.
It's almost a duck moment
Yeah.
when you watch it. Whoa!
it.
And yeah, it is that intimidation thing. Of
Yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah. Well, I got to say, like,
all good, Mr. Hill. Sorry.
And you can use Mr. Healer
okay.
twice. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Oh man, I do love going back to a Stripe as well. Like, or Bandit's like, all right, everyone move in. Like, it's like hilarious. And then I do love that like he hits a six and it's like 6 and out. And Stripe just doesn't care.
He's so
like,
proud.
That's all right. It was worth it to.
He's got a massive smile on his face. He's like,
to
yeah.
have that come back
Mic drop.
to shut down my brother who just shut me down. Take that, older brother. But I gotta say, if I did the bare bones for this episode, because apparently anybody can do it these days. They're letting just anyone do it. No, if it were me and I were to do a Marty-esque out of left field. Well, that's a baseball term. Why am I letting
come
it out of
out of the offside. There
Out
you
of
go.
offside.
Into silly mid-off.
I don't know.
Down to third man.
Down to third man. If I were to do a third man reference, a movie reference, it would be, this is like a Slumdog Millionaire episode. Where it really takes the form of this young person who nobody expects anything of.
But how does he have
Just
all the
has
answers?
all the answers for
just
anything you
happens
can
to
throw
have
at
a
him.
thing.
And like, how does he know that? And then it shows a part of his story
backstory.
as to how he got to that point. So I really
Because
felt
what
like
we
this-
didn't know.
because what we didn't know is this,
Yeah.
and what we didn't know is that, and all those things. Frank, how accurate is all that? Like the square cut, to not smash Mum's window, just the rough wicket around at his friends, around at Jack's place. Was it Jack's place? Jack's place.
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
And just all the little reasons why you need to just do this, and then all of a sudden it makes you better at the actual game for life. Yeah.
Which, of course, gives us that wonderful Don Bradman moment, which,
Yeah.
again, you don't have to know anything about cricket. My wife detests the game. But she saw that. She goes, oh, that's like Don Bradman, isn't
Yeah.
it? And there's some amazing Don
the
Bradman.
bean can on the stump and
Even
against the wall.
Against the wall. It's and Don Bradman, for those who don't know, he's, again, to use a baseball term, he's the Babe Ruth of the sport. His stats are ridiculous.
100%.
You basically work out a batter's average by
Slightly less than 100%, Brendan.
Yes.
It was like 99.
It's
Right,
99.94.
Yeah.
And that average is based on you take the number of runs you scored divided by the times you get out. Bradman's average at the end of his career was 99.94. Ridiculously, he only needed 4 runs in the very last game he played to get an average of 100, and he got out for a duck.
Which means for no runs.
Yeah.
Good call. See,
Thank
this
you.
is why I need to apologize, because I'm just going to throw terms that I accept that everyone knows what that means. And I
Yeah.
forget there's people out there who don't understand cricket. I'm sorry for you, and I'm sorry for me. But yeah, so Bradman is the best. And there's some, and we're talking, he's played in like the 1930s. So he's
So it's
old
black
time
and
he
white
played.
footage.
To put that into
I
context,
think he was in black and white, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Don
back in the
Bradman,
back in the days
Back
when things were
everything
black
was
and white.
was black and white.
That's right. To put that average of 99 into context, the best players in the world now, with all the advancements we have in technology and all the better training techniques, bigger bats, and all that stuff, the best player in the world, I think, has an average of 60 right now. So there's Bradman and there's daylight between everybody else.
It was
So
something else.
It's so good. But yeah, there's some old archival footage of Don Bradman batting up against, I think it's a rainwater tank with corrugated iron. So it's a curved surface with corrugated iron, and he's using not a cricket bat, he's using a cricket stump, which is basically a much thinner, round piece of wood, and he's hitting it with a golf ball.
Yeah.
And he's going backwards and forwards, back at the same speed that Rusty was sort of doing. Dang, gadang, gadang. And you go, the hand-eye coordination to make that you might be able to hit, most of us might be able to hit it once, and then when it pings off at a certain angle, it's gone. And Bradman's just making it look so easy. Like, magical.
It is really, this episode is creating that ideal hero cricketer story. It's like merging them all together and creating this wonderful, turning it all into one. And that's why it just warms the cockles so much. So it just drives them all together.
You know what else warms a cockle in my heart? Is Snickers trying to pick up the ball and throw it. And I just go, look, Brendan's in this episode.
Yeah. If you didn't say it, I was going to. Yeah.
It's the run to get the ball on the ground,
and
accidentally dink it with his foot, pick it up, and then just
throw it, and it goes,
and it just lands
closer than it was when it.
The
I feel
profound
seen.
embarrassment when you throw something and then you're still the closest person, so you have to go and pick it up and throw it.
That's why I
again.
just don't throw things. I just walk. Yeah, the other movie wrestler, and then once again, it's a baseball movie, so this is probably not very. No, it's not really cricket to mention it, but no. Do you remember that in Australia it was called the Sandlot Kids?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I also had similar. thought
In
when
America, I think it
watching
was
this.
just called the Sandlot. I think.
Okay.
Here it was called the Sandlot Kids. I think that's right.
Yeah, I remember. that
But yeah, there's a scene where he just like kind of picks the ball up, runs across the pitch, and just kind of hands it to him. Rather than throw it.
And it does also, I think the Sandlot Kid, that almost has that Stephen King-esque thing again.
Yeah,
of, like, Kids hanging out outside of parental control when, just come home when the lights come on. And we've sort of said that there's a couple of Bluey episodes which maybe have that aspect to it too, like that kids world. Which were,
And there was and then of course, in Sandlot Kids, I can't remember the name of the really, really good baseball player, but he did the Babe Ruth thing where he pointed and did all that stuff. And but he purposely goes, look, just when this kid was like, I can't even remember any of the names of the characters, but he was just like, I can't catch it. He goes, look, just stand there, hold your glove up, and he purposely hit it to his glove, and it was just this really nice moment of that. And that's just such a Rusty thing. Like Lucky's dad put everything he had into that ball, which is a great line. And he could have smashed it
into next week.
But he had his eye on where his sister was. He's just that tuned in. That reminded me of that scene from Sandlot as well. And also like in Sandlot Kids, I just appreciated that he was like supportive of this guy. Maybe this is turning into how I was not a physical kid, and that was a big thing. Like that was a big source of embarrassment growing up. But just having that support would just really warm someone like me because I can relate to kids who need it.
Yeah.
But yeah, just seeing Rusty support his sister, and also like when Snickers throws it and doesn't really go, Lucky's dad is just like, that's the way Snickers.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
kind of,
Yep.
It's a very supportive episode, and there's lots of little things like that, like good work, Bingo, like all those things. That, you know,
and like the hitting the catch to your younger sibling, that's a for real life moment for me. Now, to clarify, I do not claim to be half as good as Rusty is. I love the game, but I'm objectively terrible at it. But every once in a while, you play enough of it and you have a day out, right?
Yeah.
And typically we would have these big, I think I've spoken about this before, where there's my dad is one of 9, so I've got like 40 cousins on one side over in Melbourne. Come this time of year when it is cricket time, we would basically march out onto an oval and have, like, as I said, normally cricket's 11 aside. We would have like 35 fielders or something out there. So, but then I remember one day clearly I was having a good day. I was hitting them well, bang, running backwards and forwards. And then I just sort of looked around and could see my sister out in the field, just doing like Mackenzie, you know, just looking up, just going, this is boring. And I just went, and I did pretty much what Rusty did. And to be fair, trying to hit the ball deliberately to someone is actually quite hard to do.
Boy.
Oh yeah,
right.
I imagine.
So I had a few goes at it, but in the end, I was basically giving catches, and it was that thing where my sister was so pumped. She goes, "Yeah, I got you out," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you did." And yet my older cousin, who
I can't believe it.
who was my kind of age, sort of gave me a bit of a wink, like, that's the right thing to do. You had your fun. You made your runs.
That's what cricket's about, mate.
It's wonderful.
Get ready, loosen those vocals up, Tubbs. Here it comes.
Here we go. Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle. Oh, that ball is close. He's given him. He's given him. Peter Siddle's got a hat-trick on his birthday.
Because what is cricket really about then? It's about self-improvement, because we got like him learning about like doing, I love the square cut and the mum window reaction. It's just like the steely eyes when he does get it
The
right.
little rattlesnake noise as well. So good.
Yeah.
And the cheeky grin like, you can't get mad at me because I didn't actually hit it through the window. Like,
and when she chases them and they all just jump over the fence. Overcoming personal challenges. So those sorts of things. Yep. With the and just like getting used to Rusty's yard, I think, as well. It's like adapting. Yeah. 100%. Like keeping your head
I
in
love
line.
that little line where it just like during that Jack's yard with the rough yard sort of thing, like Stripe couldn't spend to save himself.
Even in
the narration,
he can't give his little brother anything.
He has to give him some shtick. That's so funny.
Ingenuity and practice.
Yeah.
So those sorts of things. Bravery.
Yeah.
And that's one of the, I also have.
Actually. Yeah. Especially when you're using a real cricket ball.
Real cricket ball. I'll just say like humility and care for others, which is just what we get out of the bit with Dusty at the end and hitting the catch. But let's go back to bravery.
Yeah.
Because we have this whole arc about Tiny, classic Australian naming, huge guy. His nickname's Tiny, who I assume has an Indian or Pakistani accent.
I couldn't quite pick at one point I thought it was South African.
Maybe South African.
And it could be like, I was even going to say West Indian accent.
I wonder what breed Tiny is. They might have tied that into the breed as well,
which they
often do.
Probably should have done a bit more research.
I say West Indian or South African based on, he's a big, tall, fast bowler, and he had the
armband
thing on his wrist, which is famously associated with either Courtney Walsh or Alan Donald would be my two picks. And because they're both big units, and so to call them tiny is funny.
And it's a whole thing of Brendan, you'd love this. It's a classical mechanics thing. The taller you are, and the taller you are, the larger arc you can.
It's all about mechanical advantage.
Yeah, mechanical advantage. It's all about the mechanical advantage, people. Welcome to the Mechanical Advantage podcast.
Oh man,
where we talk about how far away things are and how that can give you more energy.
Science.
But so that whole sequence is a real great, like getting to play with your brothers, I'm sure that resonates with a lot of people, like your brothers' mates,
older
when you're
mates.
like you're stepping up into the A grade.
Oh boy.
The real cricket ball, and I love how ripped and
Ripped and
and
just
then
that slow-mo
shot,
close up, extreme close up of the ball.
Yeah.
Oh man, the animation.
And I can confirm from first-hand experience, they really hurt.
because it's basically
boy.
it's a ball of wood, isn't it?
I think it's
Yeah.
actually cork in the middle, but
Cork,
it's like
okay.
condensed
It's
cork,
still-
but then
still condensed
wrapped in
It's
leather.
like, yeah,
and
like
then
leather.
string. It's bound with, or is that
It's
like
string, yeah.
Yeah,
like to
bound
create a
with
scene,
string
yeah.
to like create.
Yeah. So that's why people use tennis balls.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
this thing's, it's meant to hurt people.
Yeah.
I've had my nose broken by a cricket
They're hard
ball.
as nails.
It's
That's
not
why they wear
fun.
helmets and things.
Yeah.
So, it's...
And
But-
and it's all that talk of adversity and how scary that thing is. I had a bit of real life with me when I had my nose broken, and admittedly it wasn't actually from the bowler at the other end. It was one of my teammates who couldn't throw very well and gave me pretty much from where you and I are sitting.
Yeah, right.
Distance Marty, so like a couple of meters
Yep.
at best. He's going to throw it past me and sort of hooked it and straight. I had no reaction time. Anyway, shout out to Mike if he's listening.
He remembers.
He remembers. And yeah, so then, obviously you had to go to the hospital, broken nose, all that stuff. But then it was that first game when I come back.
Oh, yeah.
There was that thing. I was like, like I actually wore a helmet. And for indoor, because this is an indoor cricket,
Yeah.
you don't actually wear helmets in indoor.
Typically,
Yeah.
And so I felt a bit weird at first, but then after like the first over, like I faced that first ball and it's that real like, all right, breathe, all the things, you got to decide what to do. Don't be scared of it, all those sorts of things. And long way of saying, I saw that again with you, Brendan, when we were talking about Nash's Bucks. You were very nervous. Now you were kind of in that thing of, suck it up because the boys are here. It's a boys' day out. It's a Buck show. Rah, rah. I could tell how nervous you were going out there. You had all that gear on. You had the helmet and the pads and stuff.
I've
And
never faced a
real
ball.
cricket ball.
Yeah, nah.
And to be honest, I actually, in the lead up to it, when we were sort of helping organise the game, I actually put forward, I said, guys, maybe we shouldn't use a real cricket ball. I'm not saying tennis ball. You can get something that's in between, what they call a compo ball. So it's closer to a baseball. It's got a bit more give in it and stuff. And you get hit, you know about it, but it's not going to break a finger or a nose in my case. So I sort of pushed for that. In the end, we went with the real cricket ball, and
Glad we did. We had the right gear.
yeah,
you know.
you had the right gear. And correct me if I'm wrong, you scored a run, did you?
I did actually.
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah. I think
Talk
I
about
did.
conquering your fears, buddy.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah, and I didn't get out.
That's right. You stayed right to the end.
In fact, we were going to play more overs, and I said, "Oh, I wouldn't mind being not out.
Yeah.
I don't have to go back out there. That NO next to my name looks pretty good."
That's right.
But I you mentioned bravery, and you mentioned like earlier the rattlesnake noise
Yes.
of it. The score in this episode. I love any Joff stuff that has like just strings in it, and his like kind of by his own admission kind of dodgy guitars and stuff. It makes it sound anything strung, anything plucked makes it sound so country and joyful. It's like
I'm waiting for Paul Kelly to put that.
It's
single
like the
out.
Grandad episode, anything with that plucky, the country strung instrument. It's just so joyful. And warm but also that moment when Tiny comes on and you've got those pan pipes that like it makes it sound like war. It's a battle. He's facing battle when you face Tiny.
He's got a fair limp.
Oh boy.
So,
Yeah.
And it just, for me, it just brings back how important sports are when you're growing up. And how I remember like
the lessons,
the lessons you learn, like as I used to play soccer and be goalkeeper, and you kind of like that as well was a very psychological thing.
Goalkeeper's hard, man.
It's hard. Like, you get to be the villain or you rarely get to be the hero. And you miss one and you can't, that affects you. So it's a whole sort of same sort of thing. I remember having similar feelings. And just you're like having to build yourself up and just how do you come back from that? How do you how do you respond to,
Challenges.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically.
Because,
And,
hey,
like,
no one's going to take it easy on you.
no, that's
Like,
right.
you know, I love, of course, we get, Anthony Field, the wonderful blue wiggle back
that's right.
as Jack's dad with his sage pieces of advice.
What a legend. Anthony
right.
Wiggle, holy moly. Hearing Joe Brum, you know Joe Brum? You know
that
Joe
guy?
Brum, the creator of
Yeah.
I mean, we
I've heard of
know him because
Yeah.
we've interviewed
He's
him.
our mate.
He's our mate. But hearing him talk about Anthony Wiggle is really great. Like the respect that Joe Brum has for him and how he approached the Wiggles from a research-based point of view, and just like he was really the Paul McCartney of the Wiggles, the driving force.
Yeah.
You know, who just knew what he was doing and kind of pushed the others and kind of like shaped that. And just to have him say those words, we watched it just before we started recording, and I just tear up all over again. Just it's so sweet and so nice, and just him being away. He's on he's doing a tour of duty. Where would it? Somewhere in the Middle East, it looks like it would be.
Yeah.
And just that, I don't know, just that being part of the story of Rusty's like development and his path. And his brother as well, like Rusty's brother is a perfectly portrayed older brother.
Yeah.
And really good for Rusty. Like not so, I reckon there's so much, that's so much of why Rusty must be a good big brother to his little sister is because of Rusty's big brother to him. And he doesn't baby him when he's in front of his mates. Because he doesn't want to embarrass Rusty, and he also doesn't want to embarrass himself. Like, you big brother.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like not being too easy on Rusty, but he's being honest with him.
Yeah.
Like,
Maybe
these
when
guys,
you're older.
guys aren't going to go. Like, but he's not like, no, don't do it. They won't do it.
Yeah,
He's like, you can do it if you want, but just know the risks. He's just a really like he's
Lays
not.
it out.
Yeah, he's not babying him, but he's also being. Yeah. It's a really, really well-balanced older brother character.
Yep.
And then sticking his head out from the lower bunk, just maybe when you're a bit older.
Yeah.
And the other thing that Rusty's older brother does that you have to know about is he takes his Greg Chappell hat and he folds the brim underneath into a cap.
Yep.
The guys, honestly, to the animation team of this show...
Bravo.
The levels you go to. You did not have to do that. It was just a couple of seconds on the show. But that's what we used to do. Because I used to be in like the cadets when I was a kid, and we had the giggle hats or the floppy hats.
Yeah.
And you'd want to look like a Marine. So you'd fold the things up and you'd have like a Marine's cap. But that level of detail, turning it into a cap by folding the brim under there, who pitched that in the room? Bravo. So good.
I have to say, I really love, and another part of that whole like Tiny arc, and is the way that Tiny reacts when he hits the ball.
Yes,
you get to see the claps.
He's like,
Tiny's not an enemy. He's just a really good bowler. He's just got a lot of pace.
Excellent bowler. And so and that just brings it's a nice thing about the game as well. It's like, you're not. There is all the argy-bargy in the sledging and stuff like that. But to a certain extent, when you're playing as kids like that, it's you against the game, not against one another.
Yes.
I remember I coached the Year 5 cricket team in my school. So these kids would have been probably about sort of 10 years old. And so at that point, they're still developing, basic skills. And there was one guy, we talk about having to bowl with a straight arm. His version of bowling was literally he'd trundle up and then just throw the ball. And I worked with him for like over a year, the whole season, just go, Maxie, keep the arm straight. You got to, this is how you got to do it. And and to the point where he actually became quite a good bowler, took wickets legitimately with a straight arm. And so at the end of the season, as the coach, you go, all right, here, well done, blah, blah, blah. Award for most improved. And before I'd even finished the sentence, all of the other guys in the team all started looking at Maxie. And they knew, and I'm just like, yes. Like that.
Well, nice.
It validated me as trying to pass on my limited knowledge. I don't claim to have played at any high grade or whatever, but that the kids recognize that as well. I was like, that was a beautiful moment.
Nice.
Yeah. That's awesome. There is a bit in there though where they, like Frank's bare bones, they just have all the key terms, and it's when they have the strategic diagram.
You mean the Channel 9 graphic?
Boy.
That bird's like, it looks like a computer game,
And
right?
this is probably a good point to, if anyone was really confused by my intro. That was the 80s and 90s Channel 9. And Channel 9. It was gone are the days.
Because they used to play the cricket.
Yeah.
That's
Cricket was always
Channel 9
on
television
the one station.
channel, yeah.
That was the intro to the telecast. It's obviously all changed now and stuff, but you hear that little jingle. I don't know, Brenny, maybe you can drop that in the edit in some point.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Because, it doesn't really exist anymore, so I don't think it's a copyright strike or anything. So, it's just, that is iconic to the point where, has there been like a dance remix of that? No, I'm getting confused with the ABC.
Yeah, the ABC thing. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There probably should be though.
The pendulum.
That's right.
Was who did
But I have to say, like, when they bring up the strategic diagram, because it's a game of stats and there's so much like dead time between balls and stuff like that, they're always bringing up the diagrams and the here's the, what is it called, the wheel
where they've scored their runs,
all this sort of stuff. Hey, I have actually watched a bit I watched a little bit of cricket.
I'm so condescending. You probably know more about cricket than I do, and I'm just like, well done, Martin. Oh, isn't that good?
The one I always bring up is if the ball hits the wicket keeper's helmet that he's put on the ground, that's worth 5 runs.
Correct.
Yeah,
See, this is like
not many people know that.
Yeah, that's the most obscure thing I know, and I always bring it up when people say I don't know much about cricket. Anyway, it's the only thing I know. No, but when we're looking at that diagram, when we're looking at that diagram, it just reminds me of the Super Nintendo international cricket game.
Thank you.
Because I remember I didn't play it much myself because at the time I was not into cricket at all. That's only been happened more recently. But one of the things I love so much about that is the way you would move your players. Oh boy!
And this is, anyone might know this as it was ported as Cricket 96 on PC.
Oh really?
It was a PC version. It was very similar.
So we're talking about 1996. So you can imagine what graphics that has. And
you got it free with Weet-Bix at one stage. You got your Weet-Bix copy of Cricket 96.
Mercy! That's why you see them all over the second-hand stores. Anyway. The bit that was hilarious for me when I finally saw somebody playing it was the way that you moved your players around the pitch, which is all key and strategic, like we learn in the episode itself. It's unpacked. The way you would do it is you would have a hand, like the cursor was a hand, and then it would go over the player and pick them up, and then the player's little arms and legs would flail around like a giant hand. It was picking them up and carrying across the pitch.
It was such a nice touch.
It was, and it's like
and so out of place. Out of place with everything. Exactly.
I would like to know who pitched that. In the studio, like that's the way. Somebody must have just done it, and it must have just been hilarious. And they just left it in, but it's so good.
The little clips of when you in the Super Nintendo version when you like got someone out or when you hit a 6 or anything, there were just little cartoony little clips. But on the PC version, there were like live action snippets of character, and some of the quotes from those were great. It was like straight through him like a hot curry when you clean bowled someone. It's gone over the rope, and that's 4 runs. What a goose! And all the what? Oh, that's a sickening blow, just like the one I got when I wrote my first alimony check. And these are just burned in my brain.
Because you probably heard them so many times.
Because there were only about 9 of them. And they just repeated over and over and over.
But I do love when they're breaking down, because you were talking about it before, Brendan, the minutiae that you can get to when there's such a focus on, like one of the key things is like the degradation of the pitch. So what happens over in the test form, like, over 5 days, the grass just degrades and you get cracks and things, and that's what you use. So for international people who have never seen cricket before, when he's targeting the crack, that's a legitimate
Oh boy,
thing that you
100%.
can do. It's not like they're cheating trying to get him out.
No, it's using your surroundings.
Using the surroundings. Similarly, when they talk about, hey, try and lure him into giving this particular shot, and then we'll place our fielders in a
Where
place
he's going to hit the ball.
where
Yeah.
he's going to hit the ball. And that's a lot of, so it is a lot of coordination of these different things, where you place your fielders, what you're going to try and trick people into doing. Oh, if we do this, we'll convince him that we're going to try and do this. And then
I'll also point out the three dads bowl different types of bowling.
It is.
You've got Bandit, who's a swing bowler. So what that means is, as the ball's moving through the air, it doesn't travel straight. It sort of moves one way or the other, and that's dependent on the shine on the ball. That's again science. Rougher side, it grips the air more, and those sorts of things.
The rules about how you can shine are changing, aren't they? You're not really.
You're not allowed to use another object. You can use like your uniform or like your shirt or something like that, but you can't, as some teams have want on to do. England, I'm looking at you.
It begins. What were we saying about sledging earlier?
Throwing, isn't that maybe a little bit like throwing a cricket ball in a glass house?
Hey, I'm not saying Australia are saints. For context, recently, it was just several years ago now, but an Australian player was busted having some sandpaper in their pocket and using that's illegal, and a lot of stuff went down. Players were banned and all sorts of things. So you're not allowed to bring any sort of foreign agent. You can use your sweat from your forehead type thing. Wow. So what you then get into is some people going, oh, well, if you have a particular type of zinc cream on your face and then do that, so there's...
It almost starts to feel like, what is it? The High Court Justice sort of breakdown of like, this is happening. Is this still legal?
Yeah, so the rules are constantly evolving, and it's in any sport, right? These are the rules. Teams are going to try and find a way to bend and flex those rules. Yeah. How do I get around this rule?
But I like that. I love the game is alive and it's changing to suit the way people are playing it and whatnot. But basically, just the idea of you were saying Bandit being a swing bowler, the idea of you would only you would coordinate it so only one side of the ball was being shined, so you can leave it. And as the ball ages, that's another thing that changes.
Another factor. It gets softer over time because
the air passes over the rough side differently than the smooth side, and so you'll get like a Bernoulli effect. Well, maybe not Bernoulli. I just wanted to use another science word.
And then as well, the ball changes every once in a while. It's basically the umpire gets to choose when the ball changes.
No, it changed after 90 overs in a test match.
There we go. Right.
And in ODIs, it's after 30 overs, I think. Like that.
There
are rules around that.
There are rules, but ultimately then that becomes another tactical element.
Wait for the new ball.
Wait for the new ball.
Sorry,
can we try something?
But yes, Bandit swing bowler.
So Bandit swing bowler, you've got Stripe as the spin bowler. Which is aiming for that crack and turning it. So the idea is when it lands on the pitch, it can go left or right as opposed to straight. There's multiple different ways you can spin it. And then you've got Pat, who's just all out pace, which is basically get that thing down the other end as hard and as fast as you can.
And that's where the mustache comes in.
That's right.
Yeah.
They're usually the really scary bowlers. The Merv Hughes we spoke about earlier. Mitchell Johnson's another one if you want to Google that one. Absolutely terrifying, big, strong, fast man hurtling this literal rock at speeds.
A bouncy rock.
What? A bouncy rock at speeds that pretty much the best ones get it literally up to 100 mile an hour for our American listeners, or 145, 150k.
Yeah, straight arm.
Yeah, not a throw. It's a bowl, and that's amazing.
Oh boy,
it's like a pendulum where the thing comes off at the end. It's it's insane. And I think that's I really love Bandit's bowling action. Yeah, I think it's all the bowling is beautiful bit of animation. Yeah, and I think you can learn a lot about how it's meant to look,
the
mechanics of it, just by
considering the characters in this show don't really have shoulders per se.
No, and they're pretty square.
They've done really well to show how it
should go.
Yeah,
because it's very convincing.
Pat is such a pace bowler. And I do love that when he's like gearing himself up to try and get this kid out because it's broken him. The other two adults have like touching him, supporting him,
physically
hand on the shoulder.
hand on the shoulder.
He'll be
You can
right.
do
Let's give
this,
him a
mate.
bit of a rub. This one's for dignity.
This one's for dignity.
Because these are all the dads who have been taking over. It's a little bit of toxic masculinity, which is a bit interesting. But they can't have a kid win over them.
Yeah.
Because these are like, the men.
Well, it's that thing of like, you'll never get Rusty out. Oh, I think I can handle it. And then bang, and they're like, oh.
And then all the kids,
yay, Rusty.
Yeah.
It's like, he's our champion.
Yeah, basically.
It's so nice. But
It's such a good episode.
And then when Pat does get dispatched, his response is, oh, Dagwood dog.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Which is another one that
is it
bears explaining.
downward dog or Dagwood dog?
I'm surely he says Dagwood dog.
Yeah, that's what it
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So a Dagwood dog is something you can get at the Royal Adelaide show. It is my sister Erin's favorite food. Whatever that says about her. She just, what she it changes though. She once said her favorite food is lollies. So she's a lady of many passionate culinary items. But dag or dogs, it's essentially a corn dog, I think, because it's like a sausage in battered and fried on a stick. And I think corn dogs are called because they're cornmeal flour. I think that they battered in or something. I don't know. Americans come at me. I'm sorry, but it's basically deep fried joy on a stick. And using that as an exclamation.
Yeah.
Oh, dang dog! So good.
There's some other great, we've had enough of your pies.
Yes.
And bakery's open.
Bandit's eye roll and the way he sort of swivels off, that's a great bit of animation.
Yep.
And the way as well that Stripe rolls the ball in his hands. All those little movements that you see cricketers
These are the
doing
things you've
all the
seen
time.
a million times
And
on Channel 9.
I had another one that I was just trying to remember. What was it? Oh, when it's like when they're like, okay, that's lunch. And the way that Lucky's dad reacts, he's like, no, hang on.
Yeah.
And he picks up Dusty and picks up the kid.
Yeah.
Like, no, we can't let them go because he's so under it. And then you've got all the other parents who are just hanging out under the pagoda thing, doing the lunch thing. All the dads are committed to this.
And I love it that last bit when he does hit the catch, there is a brief aerial shot that shows the ground is cleared out. None of the other fielders there. It's basically the three adults down one end, calculating how to get Rusty out, and then Dusty sort of off, to sort of mid-on type thing. And so you get that thing of Rusty could have hit this anywhere, and he's gone ba-doom, like straight up. Wonderful. And it's just speaking to the animation part, there was a thing, and this was, I think, confirmed by Joe Brum shortly after the episode's release, the way Rusty bats, and even his cover drive in particular, it's a particular flourish on the bat, and people just went, gee, that looks a lot like Steve Smith, who is one of our all-time greats and currently still playing. And basically Joe Brum confirmed that. He's like, we base his batting. So there's the Don Bradman reference, which is the practicing, but then the actual shot he plays on the offside, bang, and it's just like, yep, that's Steve Smith. I love it.
And it's that idea of hitting it. I said care for others, but hitting it to his sister is there's a certain degree of honor and self-sacrifice in cricket as well. It's it comes from England. I think that's why it's played in many of the countries that used to be
belong to England.
England thought they possessed them, or they used to be colony countries. And that's why they play in the Commonwealth. All those sorts of sports matches, but it's the gentleman's game. There's a certain degree of respect and honor and all those sorts of things.
I believe it was even originally conceived to keep the footballers sort of fit in the off season, something like that. And so the idea was the gentleman's game was around, well, let's not injure our footballers before the football season starts.
That's interesting.
Interesting. Oh, there you go. But just this idea. Yeah, and that's what makes it more than just hitting a ball around.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just like all these layers.
It's,
Of,
dare I say it, the spirit of cricket.
Yeah.
Which is-
bringing up another sore point.
well, you can listen
in
to that on
recent
my
cricket
other
news.
podcast,
Yeah.
which is the Stay in Your Crease podcast. That's all I'll say about that.
What begins?
English listeners come at me.
yeah.
I've got more of them.
Yeah, but I mean, we could keep saying it and never properly describe what it is, what it means to like have cricket on during the summer. If you grew up in Australia in recent years, I guess.
Yeah, do you know the shot that gets me?
What?
Is the one where they've just like, Rusty just loves cricket. And
Yeah,
there's the bird's eye shot.
he just loves
on
cricket.
on the
Oh.
beach with his
Yeah.
family.
Yes.
Dad's
Yeah.
there. He's hit the ball. He goes to run. Dad like takes the stump at the other end out of the ground so he can't you know,
Yeah,
Can't
touch
actually
in for
touch it,
can't complete
yeah.
the run, and then the game just sort of devolves and it's laughed. I'm like, that right there, that's cricket. That's
Yeah.
Australia in
Yeah.
10 seconds of
Ar-
animation. It's
Arguably,
wonderful.
why we produce such great cricketers, because we've got beach cricket, we've got
Yeah.
backyard cricket
Yep.
all year round, essentially. Like we've got the weather for it, and so that's just what it's just part of it. A lot, even someone like me who cannot play and never played, just having it on. I deliver the mail in the hills, and summertime after Christmas, the Christmas rush is gone. It's January. The Ashes is happening. I'm just there
It's on the radio.
on
all
the
day.
just put on an ABC grandstand,
Yep.
and I'm
That's all you
listening.
need.
And like people go, "Oh, you got a game that it goes for 5 days? How boring!" If you like the game, why wouldn't you want it on the radio all day while you're at work? It's like this endless, enjoyable game that I like to listen to. I mean, it might not be great for the players who have to be out there in the heat for all day every day, but hey, it's great if you just want to tune in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Paul Kelly talks about it in his book.
He's got a number of songs about cricket as well.
Yes, he does. And there's one that's called Behind the Bowler's Arm, and and you'll know where to find me 10 rows back at the MCG, right behind the bowler's arm. And because he's fascinated with this, I think it's a Buddhist philosophy of I think it's like of time and this is I think it's a Chinese proverb or something about how we have a finite amount of days assigned to our lives, a finite amount of hours. But the old saying goes, any time spent fishing doesn't count to the total. and Paul Kelly always really liked that and thought that's really cool that some things exist outside of time. And he said, for me, that's cricket.
It's cricket.
That's cricket. And he said he has an ongoing tradition with a friend of his that the Boxing Day test traditionally held at the MCG. He was there on the first Melbourne Cricket Ground. Marty's a cool guy. That he's there on the first day of the test, Boxing Day, day after Christmas, and he says one of the lines in the song is, "Well, it's been a hard year pushing stuff uphill, but stuff happens all the time, and I guess it always will." And he says something, and I can't wait for Christmas, because the day after Christmas is Boxing Day, and you'll know where to find me 10 rows back with sunburnt knees, right behind the bowler's arm, which is an excellent place to sit.
Yeah.
And he just thinks, he just thought, and the final, you should look it up. It's called Behind the Bowler's Arm. It's a Paul Kelly song, but the final verse is, so when I've had my time and the angels call me like and say my time is through, I said, well, there's just one thing that you forgot. Well, we promised you wouldn't count the days that I watched credit. And the angels, they'll know where to find me at 10 rows back at the MCG. Yeah, and it's just like, that's how I feel when I've got it. You can, Paul Kelly says it's ethereal. You can leave it on in the background while you potter around the house. You can tune in, you can tune out. God bless cricket and it just being what it is. Yeah.
He'll probably pitch it in towards the leg stump and the full. It's there, it goes full! That's victory for Australia! It's Michael Bevan's evening at the Sydney Cricket Ground. What a
So
shot under pressure.
we've spoken a little bit about the letter and everything, but I mean, if we just breeze over it, it's probably doing it an injustice, because just that letter from Rusty's dad. It's so beautiful reading it out as a family when Rusty's sitting on the fence.
I love the sound effect of him
Ching,
just the
ting.
back
Yep.
on.
Yeah.
Once again.
And oh, Rusty, there's a PS for you.
Yeah.
Oh, can you read it to me? And just like this tiny sounds like he's got some pace on him. He does.
It's such a kid thing.
And just all his things, you'll face harder things in life than a cricket ball. Just, oh my gosh, it's just such a beautiful. And you've got two choices.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
It's just so well done. It's a beautifully balanced episode. So beautifully told.
And then we've got the final moment.
It's this Bluey are amazing at this as a show, because it does that thing where you go, I know what this episode's all about. I get it. That's a cool moral of the story. Already, my bleeding heart.
My emotions.
The transition to it had some people confused when it first came out, where they're like, is that Rusty's dad or something like that? What it is, it's one of these flash forwards we see in a few episodes at the end of Bluey. The other one that jumps it, like suggesting that he goes on
Rusty
to play for Australia. So he's basically fist bumped his future self as he goes out to. And
that is how I read it, but also I don't know. Is it open to interpretation? Is it open? Like, is that definitely what it is?
I mean,
like,
it's a Kelpie. It's hard to tell because he's got the helmet on and the kit and all that, and the pads and stuff. So I'm pretty sure it's meant to be an adult Rusty. It's definitely at the Gabba. You can tell we're on the stands, the way they're constructed and stuff.
I don't know if Gabba is
I think it's an acronym.
Gabba's
just a
nickname for, I think, because of the.
I don't know where it comes from, I'll be honest.
I looked that up once.
Anyway,
cool story.
It's another cricket ground somewhere.
It's the cricket ground in Brisbane, basically. That's their primary, when the big matches are played, that's where they go. So that naturally being the home of Bluey, that makes sense. And it's just the music swells, it's the fade into the shot. And Rusty's got this big smile on his face because he's just, he's just embodied the spirit of cricket by hitting a catch to his sister. And then what the end scene implies is that he goes on to like play the sport at an elite level. And you can imagine, a 20-year-old Bluey and Bingo and all that sitting in the stands going, that's our boy Rusty.
Yeah. And just the little stretch that he does with the bat and kicking the padded legs up.
Yeah, that's pumping the legs to make sure the pads are on nice and tight.
You see every cricket player leave the pavilion and do that little thing, and it's just so well animated.
It's that moment. And I remember, I think when this episode came out, Ali and I, or our family, we were traveling somewhere, and your Ali had watched it. And I said, we'll watch it when we were going to the holiday house, weren't we?
Yes, we
were. We were coming down. You guys were already there. And the episode came out that morning because we had to leave early. We didn't have time to watch it. And then Ali was messaging, I think, our group cricket chat even, and just going, have you watched the new episode? And I'm like, no. And she's like, no. It's just something in the, I don't know, it's text on the screen, but something in the tone of her voice. And I just went, I think I need to watch this now. Ali was driving, so I've jumped on the phone. Jack was asleep in the back seat. I've watched it, and I have legit cried at the end there. Ali obviously couldn't concentrate too much because she was driving. She goes, good episode, was it? And I was like, oh my God. And I just started going, blah, 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 basically like we have done for the last hour, word vomiting everything. And she goes, so it was a good episode then.
In the immortal words of Bingo, how very dare they?
It's just the best, because that's what cricket's about.
Amen, brother. Oh,
right in the feels.
Oh, boy. How we doing? Because, man.
Mate, you reckon cricket goes for 5 days? It feels like this podcast is going for 5 days.
This is a big one. It was always going to be a big one.
That's true. It is the test version of...
It was just voted numero uno, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I think we it deserves it. It
deserves it.
And to honour the boys who brought home the World Cup trophy they should never have brought home.
Wowee.
Amazing.
I could not believe that. There you go.
I feel like we do have to cut in maybe with some news.
Yes.
Like, cutting into the broadcast with the commercial that comes between everybody over. Here's the news. Oh, you have to switch over to the other channel because the news is starting on this channel. There we go. A few people
Thank
got
God
that.
for streaming that's got rid of that nonsense.
Our West Australian listeners will be leaving us for the country hour.
So turn over to 9 plus. No, well, we should probably say, what is it? What are we? K9 News.
K9 News.
K9 News, because there's been a few bits of news that have come out. Number one, the 28-minute episode that's coming up.
Yes, we forgot
that's
that somebody
who was it?
Who was it on the email in the inbox? Who was asked if we might even just quickly check our inbox just for that guy because somebody did ask very kindly. When we were going to talk about the 28-minute episode, we forgot to. And we're now doing it.
Very excited
on the laptop.
We don't know when it's going to come out next year yet, but it's coming out next year.
Yes.
So they've teased us about that much. Of course, as always, we're salivating.
28 minutes. That's like
somebody is dinged a bell.
Yeah. So is that going to be like a
sort of way?
Yeah. That's
new
good.
Bluey episode.
That's us.
Yeah.
Like 28 minutes. That's 4 lots of 7.
Yep.
So is that going to be the end of season 3? Do you think? Is that like the?
Frank's better at this stuff than
because how many have we got left? Cricket is
I believe
number one of this episode. Of
this
this
is
season?
Episode 37. Episode 37.
Oh, so there's
of
more
season
than that.
2. So there should be.
You'd think there'd
more.
be. Yeah.
If you're going to get to, if you're going to, assuming you're going to get to 52, like all.
Yeah.
So.
It's an interesting concept. I'm wondering if they were planning on doing it that way previously, or whether they decided that, whether it was going to be 4 episods that just happened to have
a running theme.
Because Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon in The Trip in the UK that was released as episodes like 4 episodes, but in the States they were movies.
It was just movies.
And then Futurama, like they did their Bender's Big Score and
so it's possible,
they Beast with a Billion
Maybe
Backs.
it is testing us to see whether we've got whether we have capacity for a movie. Because they go like that's one of the things.
It's always a big dream.
You see a lot in the social media around there. Like, just give us the movie. And I know Joe talked about.
Joe always wanted to do that. In fact, I think Frisky and Rads were going to be part of the movie. That was going to be the plot of the movie, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe it's
originally
testing the thing for that, but it's Bluey's always doing something different.
Yeah.
And you're always like,
always pushing that envelope.
Yeah. Just yes.
Envelope.
Yes,
that was the title card. Sorry.
Pushing the
envelope.
Yeah. Other news. Well, we did already mention Bluey Fest. I think you can still stream it if you're in Australia.
Yeah, I think I saw
more than 12 hours of Bluey, as we all do every week. I think
that's a light day in our house.
I think they were anticipating that we might get into it like a Triple J's Hottest 100, but I think we kind of missed the boat for that to make it into an event.
Yep.
So never mind. Maybe next year they'll do it again and cricket could cover it again.
Yeah. Every year.
Yeah. Shout out to Mary and Kate. They basically did a live.
Yeah.
I'm not on Twitter. I think it was on Facebook ultimately, where they basically kept updating their post to say this one's coming.
Those gals know what they're doing.
Yeah, and I remember looking at it going before they'd gotten to number 1 that I was just like, cricket's not in there.
Where's cricket?
You've had your big ones, your sleepy time, and all this stuff.
Good.
And I'm just like, start the slow clap. Here we go. And
people, but speaking about who's voting for what, like people love the grannies.
Yeah,
they do. Granny Mobile and Grannies were both in like top 10, top 5. Yeah.
And I was speaking to Ali, my wife, about this today, and she goes, it's really interesting that something like cricket, there's the recency bias to it, but it's a Bluey episode that largely doesn't feature Bluey. And you could argue the same with Grannies as well, or Granny Mobile in particular, because Muffin is the star of that. Yeah. And so it's really interesting that, these non-Bluey centric episodes rank so highly. Even Sleepy Time, that's largely a bingo story.
Yeah,
that's true.
So,
except if you look at Rusty, you can actually tell that it's just Bluey's model with a color change. No, I shouldn't say just, but
he's Rusty. That's all he needs to be, Marty.
But it is interesting the fact that all they have to do is change a couple of details, and it's an entirely different character because of the voice and the animation and all these things.
As someone who collects Transformers,
That's enough.
that is all you need. Different color, different backstory,
You're done. You're done. You're good. Okay. I'm not going to touch on this anymore. I've obviously I will refer to, though, the fact that the Bluey video game is now out.
Yeah.
It's in the world. I think we'll probably be looking at a little bit later.
Maybe we'll do a little something with it.
I don't know. Well, we'll get
See
there.
what we can do.
We'll get.
See what
It
we can
looks,
do.
it's Bluey. I reckon it's set up for that sort of visual styling. Would just
Oh, boy.
it looks nice in that format.
Yeah.
It's got there's I don't want to talk too much more about it until we can go into detail.
We haven't played it, so we can't
We
really
haven't played it?
critique it or
Played it?
anything.
No,
No,
just
no.
sort of seen the screenshots. and
I'm hoping to
stuff
get
and
it
the
for Christmas.
videos. Be under the tree for you. Bluey.
Yay!
Better hope Veranda Santa brings it.
Oh, that's right.
I hope I've been good.
And not one of these things.
I do have to give a shout out if you're looking at, because we're checking our inbox still, right?
Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah, we've got our old mate Casey Hancock who jumped on.
Yes.
You mentioned about an ad that
That's
featured
right.
a
Yeah,
talking
I know.
I
I know. Casey found it. Casey's got my back.
Yeah, it's an old ad for Kit Kat, basically, that screened on Australian TV, and a woman's answered the phone. It's her friend. She's going,
Doesn't
yeah, I
want to talk
know.
to her.
Oh, I know. Oh my God, this conversation's going on a long time. And so she puts the phone in front of her
Parrot.
pet cockatoo that just sits and goes,
Yeah.
oh, I know. Yeah, I know. Like basically just entertaining her friend who is prattling on. We might, I haven't got the laptop hooked up correctly, so we might drop the audio in for that later.
Ooh, I know.
But yes,
Because
very
I
funny. And
thought
good
I
shout,
always
Casey. Thank you for
suspected-
finding that.
I always suspected that might be a reference to Faulty Towers, but the bird is just saying, I know, but there's one bit right at the end where it says, oh, I know, which is something Prunella Scales says in the Sybil Faulty.
And as far as the 28-minute episode, it was our mate Owen.
Thank you, Owen.
Who mentioned, he basically replies, oh my God, I can't believe you read my name out on the show. Well, we're doing it
We're
again,
doing
mate.
it again.
And he's right. At the time where he originally emailed us, we had basically only
Yeah,
just
we
heard about
just heard
28-minute
about it.
episode, and we totally forgot about it.
Yeah.
We literally
Yeah,
pressed
yeah.
stop recording.
We'll have to make have to make mention of that. Whoops.
We were packing up, and I was like,
Damn
and we did have somebody now who, oh no, I've forgotten your name, but basically our cricket fan from, now where was it?
Brazil. Reggie.
Reggie.
Yeah, Reggie. Thank you. Sorry, Reggie. Congratulating us, because apparently somehow we're responsible
Thank
for the
you,
Australia
Reggie,
win.
for understanding
100% part of the team.
how much of a part we play. Thank you.
But yes, and that's very much the reason. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, Reggie.
Yeah.
Oh,
with,
man.
all the cricket references. Is there anybody blue in the pavilion?
Oh, I believe there
Brendan?
is. I'll just grab my phone because I did get organised earlier for giving some credit where credit's blue.
Pavilion, nice reference.
Yeah, nice. Marty is on it.
He's bringing
Is
his
on
A
it.
game, right?
Yeah. Yes, he is.
So I've only got one shot. Please finish soon. I'm almost out of all my material.
Quick, finish the episode.
Quick.
Well, let's finish the episode with what we usually finish the episode with. Cue the drums. It is time to give some credit where credit's blue, and I will do it. This episode, I would like to give credit where credit's blue to production accountant Daniel Schultz.
Hooray!
Thank you, Daniel. And I'll tell you, usually we don't do this. Usually I try to make it as random as possible. But Daniel Schultz on this episode is also credited as the cricket consultant.
Yes!
So
He's my favourite. He's my favourite.
So I thought I
You've
had
done
to,
amazing
I
work
had
there.
to do it, Daniel. Thank you
work,
so much.
Schultz.
Thank
Nice
you.
work,
Thanks,
Schultz.
Schultzy.
Good,
Thanks,
Schultz.
Schultzy.
Good work, Schultz.
Good work, Tiny.
Good ball, Schultz.
Yeah, nice.
Go, shoo, shoo.
Bowling,
Nice.
Schultzy.
Nice, Schultz.
Good areas, Schultzy. Good areas. That's Schultzy. Good line, good length. Yeah. But no, I must say, I thought I'd put that one in there because if the Bluey team thought that your input, Daniel, into this episode was good enough for you to be credited as cricket consultant. That you're obviously very valued in getting all these little things accurate.
Do you know what? The other role that he's done for however many other episodes,
the production,
doesn't really matter.
The production
I'll be
accountant.
honest, because if someone goes, "What do you do for a living?" You know, meeting a new person, he'd be like, "I was the guy that told Bluey how to cricket."
Nice one. Thanks, Schultzy. Schultzy. No, that's is that? No, that's yeah. That yeah. Okay, yeah. That was Trudy's.
Yeah, that's right.
Schultzy.
That's a Trudy thing. Schultzy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that's time.
Some cricket puns to bring it home? Because from Martin and I are out.
My bare bones, the other one I had was a one around a lot of the terminology, your silly mid-ons, mid-offs, and stumps and bails and all these things. But I ended up going with the names one. It didn't quite come together, the other one. So yes, the cricket has lots and lots of weird names. So when you hear someone that's feeling that if someone's fielding at silly mid-on, that's not someone trying to have a laugh. That's a genuine position in the game.
Yes,
that
it is.
means something to some people.
Yeah.
Not me.
Now, what I love about cricket and those plastic stumps that you were talking about, the polymer stumps, because
polymer
plastic isn't a material; it's a property of material.
No one
from
cares.
the Greek word plastikos, meaning to flex. The word you're looking for is a polymer. Now, I should clear up, like whenever I said plastic, Martin, when he was doing industrial design, used to catch me out on that all the time. And that was a really, really pedantic run he'd used to go on. I tried to throw it back at him, but I forgot and I stalled and he finished it for me, which completely ruined my joke. But my brother has an esky that folds up into a set of stumps.
I know the ones.
and you pull it along with the things. And I think, eskies and coolers and novelty coolers, I think you can get them down at Hammer Barn.
You can.
Yeah. There's all sorts of little like the stickers that you put on your bins.
Yep.
You can get the bins, the replacement wheelie bins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're down aisle 300 as well. So folks, just you can catch me and Frank and Martin looking at novelty cricket items. Down aisle 300.
Left at the popping crease, and you can see it's looking a little bit dry. I'll get the key and I'll stick it in there. Oh, it's gone all the way into the crack.
It should be an interesting. Would you be batting first in that case?
I would be batting first. I just need to find someone to park my car because I don't have the keys anymore.
Marvelous.
Marty's like, what do I do with that?
And if you get a duck, you're going back to the pavilion.
Yay!
Created and produced by Frank, Brendan and Marty. You can follow the Hammerbarn Project on facebook.com/HammerbarnProj, at HammerbarnProj on Twitter, or Hammerbarn_project on Instagram. Theme featuring Nibblings, Kaylee, Jade, Ashley and Reese, and PA announcements by brother-in-law, me, Josh. Thanks for listening, and remember to get down to Hammerbarn for cheap shovels.